It's suburban America, 1982. A generation of kids are gathering in basements and living rooms, not to summon demons, but to pretend to be elves and wizards battling imaginary dragons. Meanwhile, their parents are watching news specials warning that these same children are one failed saving throw away from suicide, murder, and eternal damnation. How did a game created by a shoe insurance underwriter become public enemy number one? Let's roll initiative and find out. Dungeons & Dragons was created by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson in the early 1970s. It evolved from wargaming into something more imaginative. Players created characters, embarked on adventures, and navigated fantasy worlds guided by a dungeon master. And by 1979, the game had developed a devoted following, particularly among creative teens and college students. The trouble began with the 1979 disappearance of 16-year-old James Dallas Egbert III, a gifted Michigan State University student and D&D player. When private investigator William Deere was hired to find the missing teen, he speculated to the press that Egbert might have gotten lost in the steam tunnels beneath the university while playing a live-action version of the game. This theory was completely false. Egbert had actually attempted suicide due to academic pressure, substance abuse issues, and struggles with his sexual identity. But facts didn't matter once the media caught wind of the D&D disappearance. Why would it? Even after Egbert was found alive, tragically, he would later die by suicide for reasons unrelated to gaming. The damage was done. Enter the professional panic mongers. The D&D controversy might have faded away if not for the efforts of Patricia Pulling. When her son Irving committed suicide in 1982, Pulling became convinced that D&D was responsible, despite no evidence supporting this belief. She founded Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, bad. And became a self-proclaimed expert on the game's supposed dangers. She claimed that it was an occult tool that opened up young people to influence or possession by demons. Bad distributed literature warning that D&D taught spellcasting, demonology, witchcraft, voodoo, and blasphemy, and even assassination. Pulling appeared on national television programs like 60 Minutes and Donahue, spreading misinformation about the game's supposed links to Satanism, suicide, and murder. The mainstream media, always hungry for sensational stories, as we've seen before in the other videos, involving kids in danger, they amplified these concerns, as always, without bothering to fact check. I mean, why would they fact check, right? And before long, local news programs were running special investigations with titles like Dungeons and Dragons, A Gateway to Satan, and Is Your Child Playing with Evil? Are they? And then we got our next group coming in. The religious right will enter the dungeon. Evangelical Christian leaders quickly joined in on the anti-D&D crusade. I remember that when I was a kid and going to church, they said it was bad, and they saw that opportunity to demonstrate their moral authority and boost their own relevance. Famous televangelist Pat Robertson told his 700 Club viewers, the 700 Club, I remember that. He said that the D&D was a fantasy role-playing game that it uses demonology, witchcraft, voodoo, murder, rape, you name it. They did it all, right? And this was an impressive list for a game whose most controversial content was statistical tables for armor classes. Religious tracts warned parents that D&D manuals were equivalent to grimoires, actual spell books that could summon real demons. Jack Chick, famous for his evangelical comic booklets, published Dark Dungeons, which showed a D&D player being initiated into actual witchcraft and another committing suicide when her character died. The message was clear. Let your kid play D&D and they might kill themselves, or worse, become a witch. What evidence did these moral crusaders offer to D&D's demonic influence? Primarily, they pointed to the game's inclusion of magic, monsters, and non-Christian deities. The monster manual's description of demons and devils were presented as proof the game taught demonology, despite these creatures being portrayed as villains to be defeated. When pressed for statistical evidence linking D&D to suicide or violence, anti-D&D activists would cite individual cases where troubled teenagers who happened to play the game had committed crimes or taken their own lives, ignoring the millions and millions and millions who played without incident and the many other factors involving these tragedies. As game designer Michael Stackpole noted in the debunking of these claims, using the same logic, we could conclude that milk causes juvenile delinquency, since almost all juvenile delinquents have consumed milk, right? Now we'll get into the legal battle. Several bereaved parents filed lawsuits against TSR, the publisher of Dungeons & Dragons, claiming that the game caused their children's suicide. All these lawsuits were dismissed for lack of evidence, but they generated extensive publicity that further damaged the game's reputation. The 1982 made-for-TV movie Mazes and Monsters, starring a young Tom Hanks, dramatized the dangers of role-playing games, showing a psychologically vulnerable student having a psychotic break after becoming too immersed in a D&D-like game. Though fictional, many viewers accepted the film as based on true events. Perhaps the most absurd media moment came during a 1985 60-minute segment when Ed Bradley asked D&D creator Gary Gygax if he was in league with the devil. Gygax maintainingly remarked composure and replied, "I'm not in a league with the devil. I don't even know the devil's address." Anyway, the moral panic had serious consequences for young D&D players. Schools banned the game or disbanded D&D clubs. Libraries removed the rule books from their shelves. Parents confiscated gaming materials and punished children found playing. Some teenagers were sent to therapists for even to cure their supposed satanic influence. One former player recalled, "My mother burned my D&D books after our pastor said they were tools for Satan. I think we knew a few people where that happened. D&D was the devil, at least at my church it was." By the late 1980s, the evidence against the anti-D&D crusade was mounting. Studies commissioned by the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, got involved. They found no causal link between D&D and suicide. The game's players were growing up to become functioning, productive adults rather than satanic cultists. Who would have thought? Public opinion slowly began to shift. The Pulling Report, written by game designer Michael Stackpole in 1990, systemically debunked Patricia Pulling's claims and methodologies. Methodologies? Yeah, that's how you say it. They revealed her profound misunderstanding of both the statistics and the game itself. Academic researchers began studying role-playing games as positive social activities rather than dangerous obsessions. As one former at-risk player put it, "D&D didn't push me towards Satanism, it saved me from delinquency." Despite being vindicated, Dungeons & Dragons and its players bore the scars of the moral panic for decades. The Satanic Panic faded, but the stereotype of D&D players as socially awkward, potentially dangerous outsiders persisted in popular culture. They were nerds, right? We've all heard that. The ultimate irony came in the 2010s when D&D experienced a massive cultural renaissance. Suddenly, the game once condemned as a path to damnation was being praised for its creativity, its collaborative storytelling, and social benefits. Television shows like Stranger Things portrayed D&D players sympathetically. Celebrity players like Vin Diesel, Stephen Colbert openly discussed their love of the game, and streaming shows like Critical Role attracted millions of viewers. And by 2020, what was once denounced from pulpits was being used by therapists, teachers, and even some forward-thinking churches as a tool for building community and developing social skills. The very aspects that made moral crusaders suspicious, imagination, creating alternate identities, collaborative storytelling, were now recognized as valuable psychological and educational tools. The D&D moral panic revealed something important about the Satanic Panic as a whole. It was never really about protecting children. It was about controlling the culture, as we always see, maintaining authority and exploiting parents' fears for political and religious gain. As Gary Gygax himself observed before his death in 2008, the opposition to D&D was political in the broad sense. Certain fundamental religious groups were upset because the game encompassed religions other than strict Christianity. They were using it as a stepping stone to gain control over other things. In the end, the dice-rolling teenagers weren't the ones attempting to cast mind control spells. It was the moral crusaders all along. Now, if this episode made you roll a natural 20 on your knowledge check, smash the like button, hit subscribe, please. And ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next headbanging journey through the metal hysteria next week. All right? So drop your thoughts in the comments. Were you a D&D player who also loved metal? Yeah? Were you accused of being a Satanist? Did your parents make you choose between your Kiss albums and your character sheets? Or were you one of the lucky ones whose parents actually understood that fantasy is just that? Fantasy. This is Jorge, reminding you that sometimes the real monsters aren't the dragons in your campaign. They're the moral panic profiteers trying to slay your imagination. Until next time, stay horrified, stay informed, and remember to always check for traps before opening society's doors. Until next time, I'll see you then.